Hello YouTube, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney. On this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We have a question here from YouTube user Prophetess Newsom. I wonder if there's any relation to Gavin Newsom. Prophetess Newsom asked us, while engaging in protected activity due to religious discrimination, where I was denied promotions due to my religious need for time off, after I complained about verbal harassment and workplace violation to employee relations. Oh, okay, so just a quick punctuation issue. I'll read that again. Just while engaging in protected activity due to religious discrimination, where I was denied promotions due to my religious need for time off, comma, after I complained about verbal harassment and workplace violation to employee relations, comma, 6 days later, I was placed on leave pending investigation and asked numerous questions about my religion. Doesn't this further prove my religious discrimination charge that I have filed with the EEOC? Okay, maybe. Depends. Also, does a vengeful witness help solidify my case of discrimination? I.e., a former friend offering up true and false information concerning me to my employer following a falling out between us. Okay. So I don't know. First, we'll deal with the witness first. I don't know if that witness works with you. I don't know if that's a coworker, a colleague, a peer. Makes a big difference in the scheme of things, because if it's just your friend from your normal casual friend life, then it's got nothing to do with your employer at all, right? So like if your friend's just like hopping in and like throwing haymakers and saying things about you, some of them are true, some of them are not true, that's on your friend, and it's got nothing to do with your employer. Doesn't necessarily prove anything for your case. Like there's scenarios where it could be evidence in your case. I can imagine a few, but if it's just like a friend from your social life that wants to talk about you negatively and some of it's not true, that is not necessarily going to be evidence in your employment discrimination case, your religious discrimination case, right? Now, let's deal with the other part of this. And then you have inspired me with your question, Prophetess Newsom, to kind of do a quick series of videos on religious discrimination, because there's a lot of complexity here. The case law is a little unsettled in this field, and we get a lot of questions about it. And honestly, during the pandemic, largely I was not touching those because a lot of this stuff was generating calls that we didn't really want to deal with. So now I think I'm free to answer these questions. Excuse me, but these questions are a little bit more complex than the average question on the channel. So I'm going to try to do like a multi-part series and get folks the full answer, even though it is going to be kind of hard for some to wrestle with. I think most of the channel viewers are going to have no problem, but I think some people are going to be like just saying whatever they want to say, and they're not going to register the content of the video vis-a-vis the case law. Okay, let's get to your other piece of the question. So you complained about, I believe, religious discrimination to employee relations. 6 days later, you were placed on leave pending investigation. Now we need to know, was that a paid leave or an unpaid leave? Did you lose opportunities because of that leave? Like how were you harmed by that leave? If the leave was just a leave granted to you while they investigate, and you're paid, you're not losing anything, so on and so forth, that could be fine. That could actually be best practice. I would often counsel defense counsel to say, hey, I think you should put my client on paid leave, because things go real bad for your client in the meantime if they mess with my client. So this might make sense, right? So if it's paid leave, I don't think there's any harm there. Now, the difference is if it's unpaid leave and you're out, you're not getting paid, you're losing opportunity, you're losing pay, you're any kind of workplace benefit you might be losing as a result of being out on this leave while they investigate. I would say that could be viewed as retaliatory. That could be problematic. And the source of a potential claim, or at least additional claims, right? Retaliation claims. Retaliation claims to back up your already pending, or sounds like already filed, religious discrimination claim, right? So there's the detail there. Now, you also seem to be disturbed that they are asking questions about your faith. This is not necessarily inappropriate. This could simply be them engaging in the reasonable accommodation dialogue, which is their affirmative duty, right? So, listen, not every faith receives an accommodation. Not every religious accommodation ask is reasonable. There is a dialogue about, what is and is not reasonable. There's also some very complex tests about what is and is not a religion. And listen, those tests are really easy with established religions, right? Like, I'm technically Catholic. That's a fairly established religion. There's not too many people who are going to say Catholicism is not a religion, right? And certainly less popular faiths, I guess would be the best way to say it, like Wiccan, right? No question in my mind that that's a faith, right? But certainly in my youth, I dated folks who were engaged in that faith, who felt strongly about that faith, right? But there's also, listen, you could have a faith of one. Just you're the only person. You have this closely held religious belief. Is it or is it not rising to the level of religion? Well, there's tests for that. And I'm going to do a whole nother video for that later in the week, kind of getting into that, what is and is not a religion. But long story short, to answer your question here, yeah, they can engage in a reasonable dialogue with you. They can go back and forth and ask about your accommodations and ask about your needs, and even to some extent inquire about your faith and the tenets of your faith, and like where is this written down? Where are these rules established? Right? Is there an authority in your faith? Are you the authority in your faith? What are we dealing with? And listen, some of these questions can be dangerous for the employer, but that's not your problem. We're not here to give best practices to employers. We're here to discuss your claims. And the reality is they're going to have some ability to talk to you about your accommodations and your faith as they engage in the reasonable accommodation dialogue. So I don't know what they're saying to you. It might be appropriate. It might not. It might be the source of additional evidence for your claim. It might be a source of additional claims. It could be viewed as retaliatory. It could be they're getting aggressive with you. I don't know. But to answer your question, it is not necessarily inappropriate for them to be investigating your accommodation request. In fact, some level of investigation would be best practices on their part. Now, I don't do compliance work. I don't train employers how to do this stuff. So I'm not going to be as up as, say, like an attorney like Eric Sarver or Ivan Hanel, right, who's an in-house counsel, right? Eric does compliance work, kind of guiding employers on best practices as an outside counsel, and Ivan's in-house, so I'm sure he knows how to guide an employer on a religious accommodation dialogue, right? But it's not what I do, right? So my job is more to look for the cracks, how can we turn this thing they're doing into leverage and get in there, right? What you're putting here certainly sounds like there's some retaliation at some points, or at least there could be, right? But the devil, as they say, is in the details, and we don't necessarily know yet. So, Prophetess Newsom, I give you the unsatisfying answer of could be. I don't know. And that stinks. If you want to follow up in the comments down below, I will track the comments down below and try to give you a more built-out answer if you give me more detail. It's not that I want to give you the unsatisfying answer of, it could be, right? I want to give you a real answer. I just don't have enough, and I saw your question, I said, hey, that is an interesting question, and it's time that we really spent the time on religious accommodations, because I don't have a deep interest in religion, but it doesn't mean that people don't have a right to their faith and their accommodations, and it's protected by the law. So I better get on that, right? So I will. Gonna get to work on that video now. Anyways, if this video is helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below, share the channel so it may grow. Take care.